Hey guys, this is Bill with Photosynthesis Photography, and this is the first photo critique that I'm hosting. And it was inspired by some other photographers that I saw on Facebook that were doing some critiques. And today I am joined with Christian Golick of Christian Golick Films. Why don't you say hi, Christian?
Hello.
Nice.
Straight and simple. No. Yes, my name is Christian Golick, and I run a videography company in the Lehigh Valley, Christian Golick Films, specializing in emotional storytelling. And that can be weddings, that can be business, branding videos. As long as it has a heartfelt story, that's where I'm at.
Awesome. Very, very cool. So I thought I'm primarily a wedding photographer, and I thought it would be interesting because, in my personal experience, I have learned from watching videographers and cinematographers because we, as photographers, of course, think of things from a perspective, and sometimes it's more obvious perspective as compared to video. So one of the reasons I brought Christian on was because I thought it'd be interesting to have a videographer's perspective, which could really add some insight into still imagery.
Yeah, I'm very excited to kind of dissect it and one of the things I'm a little jealous of photographers is the ability to kind of craft that perfect image just about and have that capability to really control the eye through one single frame, whereas video, it's the composition but then the movement and the action, and um, so it gets a it's a lot to juggle sometimes.
Yeah,
So I'm very excited to kind of like slow down a little bit and just go into a
there you
single
go.
frame.
Freeze it up.
Exactly.
Awesome. All right. So I also wanted to preface this critique with this notion. I don't know with the photographers that entered. I don't know if they have any experience entering into a critique. I have entered images into a critique in the past, and before photography, my background is in drawing and painting and fine art, and a very traditional part of the visual arts is a critique. And I've had many drawings, many paintings critiqued, and of course, I've also had photographs critiqued. And when if you've never had any of your images critiqued, or a drawing or painting or anything like that, it could come across like someone is telling you you're doing something wrong. Um, that's kind of cool. I like that. There you go. And it's not an issue of right or wrong. It's an issue of, this is a perspective that is different than your own. And the purpose of a critique really is to learn, for everyone to learn. So myself and Christian, this does not mean that we are telling you what you're doing wrong. It's just our experience and what might help to have a different perspective on the image. So if this is your first time having a critique, I remember my first time having drawings critiqued. I remember my first time having photographs critiqued, and sometimes it's humbling, and but it really is a learning experience. And I have to say, when I first looked through these images that were submitted, I was I was like, these are really good, and it makes it harder to critique. So kudos to all of you just for having really great images to submit. So without further ado, we will get into some images.
Let's get into it.
This is kind of one of my first times Zooming. I usually FaceTime and do the Google Hangout. So if I mess up, be nice. Or you could critique my Zooming skills or lack thereof. There will be bad jokes throughout this Zoom session.
Oh, 100%.
How am I doing, Christian?
Pretty good so far.
Yeah, they're
All
coming
right.
up.
Yep. There's the
Sweet.
first image.
All right. Whoops, go back.
Whoop.
Okay.
There we are.
And I don't think it's on slideshow, so it should just stay. Okay.
Okay.
Yes. All right. So this first image, this looks like it's a engagement session, portrait session. Uh, right off the bat, I think this image has a really great composition. I think the maker was very smart in having the couple in the lower left hand corner, and then juxtaposing the skyline and the tallest building there in the upper right hand corner. So you have that kind of flip flop of lower left and upper right balancing each other out. So nice job there. There's some kind of external light source on them, whether it's a continuous light or a flash. And I think the maker did a good job of balancing that with the ambient light in the environment. So that's nice. One thing when you're using flash or LED, if you're introducing some kind of artificial light into an environment where there's also some kind of natural light, always be mindful of what the natural light is doing in the environment. So, for example, on the skyline, especially, can you see my mouse?
Yeah, I see it.
All right, fantastic. This building right here, indicates that light is coming in from the right.
Mm-hmm.
This here too, and the light source on them is coming in from the left, because you could see that there's a cast shadow from the arm, which indicates the light source is coming in from the left. So one thing to think about is just trying to get rid of that little box. One thing to think about is, whoops.
Oh, you did the slideshow.
See, this is where you guys can critique my lack of Zoom skills.
You can. Oh, there it goes.
I think we're good. Yeah,
I think when you move the mouse, it comes back up.
There we go. So think of the light, the ambient natural light in the environment, and in this case, it seems to be coming more from the right. And I would mimic that with your artificial light. So have it coming in from the right, and it matches the environment's light coming in from the right, and it could look more natural. Now, admittedly, it's not something I noticed right away, but there could be these kind of subconscious things affecting us, and you kind of have to dig deep and figure out what's making this feel natural, or maybe slightly not as natural as it can. So whatever artificial light you're introducing, try to keep it consistent with the natural ambient light in the environment. I like how they're looking at each other. I think it's nice. It's not super expressive, but it doesn't have to be. Everyone doesn't have to have a giant smile on their face all the time. I think it's a nice, sincere look. So the maker did a good job of capturing that. I would like to see her left hand a little bit more. Now I think she's wearing a glove. So
I was gonna say that. Yeah. The glove gets hidden.
Exactly. What gets tricky is when you have something that's a very similar color or very similar tone, and it can kind of disappear within something else. So possibly she could have taken her glove off, or the hand could have been raised up a little bit more. I do like that you could just see his hands embracing her. It is nice also to sometimes bring the hands up closer to the face. One person can be, bringing the hand up closer to the face. I think the hands really, obviously I keep using my hands, they really can be expressive and can introduce gesture into an image. I think the palette here is really great. And, I got to commend the maker in realizing that there's these pink and warm tones in the background, and the subtle sunset, which is the natural light is coming from the other way. And sometimes at sunset, you actually get color on the east sky, not just, the west sky. So there is this nice palette in the sky, which is actually consistent with the colors that they're wearing. So she has these pink tones they're in the sky. He's got the blue scarf. You can see that in the building. So I think that's, and I will admit, I can overlook palettes and colors. I can get focused on light and composition and emotion, and all those things are important, but don't forget the overall color palette of what's going on. And sometimes we can control that, other times we can't. I think the maker was mindful that one of the reasons this image has some impact is that there's this consistent color scheme with the subject and the environment.
Oh yeah.
So that's the notes I have on this one while I take a sip of my mint tea.
Mint tea. I will add one more thing to direction of lighting. I think,
Yes.
and also the palette of colors, spot on. Like I saw the pink magenta of the sky with her jacket, and I was like, that's nice. And then the blue in his scarf was like the subtle. It's nice because the blue in his scarf is subtle on him, but very in your face on the background. And the pink jacket on her is very in your face for her, but very subtle in the background. At least it's less prevalent than the blue. So I think that's a really nice color contrast. Direction of light on them for sure needs to come from the other side to match the ambient. But I think, and this is where I think my cinematographer opinion comes into play more than photography, and this is 100% style, is I want to see that light diffused and softened, because it looks like a speed light. It looks like a very hard source, and you can see that from the cast shadow. I want to see a more softened light and even a little less intense. And I know that might make them pop a little less, but I think it would blend the whole image together because the background is very soft. And I'm not just talking about focus, but I mean like the colors just like mesh together, and it's very like smooth and relaxing. So I think like butter. So to have that light quality on them as well, in addition to the direction of the speed light, I think that would really really make the image seem like a complete piece, or more natural, as if there wasn't external lighting.
Yeah, that's a good point. Absolutely. All right. Any other notes on this image?
No, I think this is good.
All right. Yeah. Well done by the maker. Yeah, definitely a really nice image. We'll move on to the next image. Maybe.
Yeah, I think, yeah, there you go. Yeah, don't hit the play button because that'll do slideshow.
There we go. All right,
Nice.
Fantastic. Okay, so why don't Christian? Why don't you start for this one?
Yeah, right away. I love the playing of light and shadow. I don't even like. My eyes are honed in to the center, to the bride, to the window, and the background and the sides of the frame. They're there, and like I appreciate that detail in there, but they're dark because the focal point aren't the chairs, even though they look like nice chairs. The focal point is right on that bride, and that's right where my eye is taken to. So I love that. I would say I like the expression, or I like the moment that this bride is having. She's looking out the window. We don't know what she's looking at. Maybe it's guests. Maybe it's, her dad walking outside the building. Like, I don't know. And it doesn't overly matter who it is, but I would have liked to see more of her face. Even though like she's looking out there with an intention, if she like cheated it a little bit and turned left more, just so we can get like a little bit of side profile with her nose. I mean, if there's going to be a portrait, I need to see an eye. Like the eyes are so important to any portrait, even if it's just a glimpse from a side angle. I think that would be really nice. Um, I really do like the detail of her tattoo on her arm. I like how that's nicely shown.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's definitely like a focal interest point. I would have liked to see her right hand instead of it being behind the shear. If she were to like lightly grab the edge of the shear so we can see some fingers, because right now it kind of looks like her hand's chopped off. Like her left hand's in her pocket, which is also awesome that wedding dresses have pockets, but
Yeah.
which is an uncommon thing. But right, her right hand, it's like, where did it go? Even though we know it's behind the curtain, just seeing it would be really nice.
Yeah, very much agree. I think you those are actually some notes I had. You know, hands are so important. I mean, I was just looking at an image I did from a wedding in December of 2019, and you know, I continually have to remind myself of hands, and hands are so important. And of course, the face is important, the body is important. Hands tell so much of a story. They do a lot of things. And you know, I was looking at a picture, and you know, the bride's hand is like this behind the groom's arm. You know,
Mm,
and then that happens. You know, so you've just cut it off. And
right.
I should have been more mindful, simply just to have her do that. You know, just so you could see the embrace, so you could see whatever it is that the hands are doing. So I agree with you about the hands. I agree with you about being able to see a little bit more of her face. And that makes me think of, there's sometimes there's a very difficult line to draw in between, you know, when is something photojournalism, when is it a portrait, when is it something in between, you know.
Mm,
So sometimes, and to all the makers of these images, you know, we were not there during these shots. We don't know the context of all the situations, of course. So sometimes, you know, for example, this might have been 100% or mostly photojournalistic. Like you're saying, maybe someone was walking up and she just looked out, you know. And in that case, you know, when the bride looks at this image, she's like, you know, this is when I saw my dad pulling up, you know. So she's going to look at that image, and it's going to have a lot of impact from a photojournalistic standpoint. If this was more of a photojournalistic style portrait, you know, then some more direction could have been given, you know, with what we're saying of showing the hands more, turning the face more, and it could have still told the story of her looking out the window, but you know, getting that profile and, you know, seeing the eyes a bit more.
hmm
Um, let's see, any other notes I had about this? Pretty minor, you know. There's you know, this light area on the floor here, which is just
mm,
a little distracting to me. You know, could be brought down or cloned down. But you know, if you cover that up with your finger, this is an old technique I learned from one of my drawing teachers. You know, is you just bring up your hand, bring up your finger, and you close one eye, uh, and then you just get kind of used to all the tones and the colors in an image, and then you move your hand, and then you kind of see what something might be a little distracting. So bringing down that floor, it's minor, but it's something that could take me away from the bride just a bit.
sure.
I love how the veil is on the right side of the composition. It's
Yes.
not, there's not a lot of light on it. I don't think there needs to be a lot of light on it. It's just enough there to tell a story.
And it balances with I don't even know what's in the reflection of that photo of in the left, but there is light, like a light streak. I don't know if that's the dress or what that is. Maybe it's shears. I don't know, but it's white and it's not overly bright, and it balances out with the veil on the right side of the frame.
Yeah, yeah,
Subtle.
that's just an interesting area of intrigue. Um, it's obviously a frame. It's reflecting something. Maybe there might be another window on the other side of the
Mm,
room with the shears, but either way, it's something, and it does add a little bit of interest without being too distracting. So
hmm.
another really nice image. So I got to commend the maker on this one.
Oh yeah.
All right, we'll move on to the next image. This is another wedding picture.
Yeah.
No, no, it's not.
Oh yeah, I see the bride right now.
Everyone's getting married. Everyone's invited.
That's a big old party.
Yeah. I didn't have a specific theme for this critique. I'm just doing it for the first time, and uh, it was just submit whatever you want. If it's a photograph, submit it, and we'll go from there. So it's nice. We do have some non-wedding images, and it is nice to kind of. We're so used to, of course, doing a lot of wedding work, so it's nice to see, people on the beach. So this image, I think it's a really great point of view. I think the maker was smart to. I don't know if I don't know if this is where the person lives. I don't know if they were on vacation. Uh, they could have been walking by and saw this and acknowledged it as a good point of view. Um, could have They could have also been on the beach, and the maker could have been like, you know what, let's if I go up there, I'll get a really great perspective. It
Hmm.
it shows off the water, it shows off the sand, it shows off the greenery, it all in a very defined way. There's if you were standing on the beach, you of course could see water, you could see some sand, but I don't know if everything would be as clearly defined from the perspective that this is shot. So I think that was smart to shoot from here. And this is one of those images where I could look at this for like an hour. There's so many stories going on, and story is this is one thing that I've certainly learned from cinematographers, from videographers, um, and from other photographers critiquing my own images. It's like, what's the story? There should be something going on, whether it's a bunch of people on the beach or even a detail shot. What's the story? And some images and some images will just fall flat. Certainly some of my images, it's just like there's not a story to be told. So this has a tremendous amount of story. You can see, there's groupings of people, and then there's people like kind of just hanging out on their own, doing their own thing, and there's a lot going on. So it's the kind of image you could really get immersed into.
Hmm.
um, let's see. One thing I would like to see, and again, this is where context comes into play. This person could have been on vacation. I don't know if they were ever at this location again. I would have loved to have seen this image from the same perspective with all the people on the beach, but with a direction of light. Now,
Yeah.
there's not really much light and shadow. I think low light and these long cast shadows going across from all the people and the palm trees could have been really striking. Um, Obviously, it's not a super sunny day, or if there is sun, it's not low and not real pronounced. So again, they could have been on vacation. I found myself in this situation where I'm on vacation somewhere, I take some pictures, I don't ever have an opportunity to go back. Uh, but with that being said, maybe the maker could have gone back at another time. Or what I started doing when I go on vacation is I'll get out Google Maps or Google Earth, and you could kind of virtually scout out the location and check out the weather for the next few days, and see when would be the best time to go here, and maybe get some more interesting kind of dramatic light.
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing with lighting. I think it's pretty universal that sunset and sunrise light is better than high noon. Um, I definitely think it's not overcast, but I do not think it's direct, no clouds in the sky sunlight. I think there might have been like some light clouds or something, because there are shadows, but they're not piercingly dark.
Right.
I mean, it could have been editing as well. But I think that not all images have to be shot at golden hour, at sunset or sunrise. This is
Sure.
still a great image, and and not that this needs to be used for any particular thing, but like, I think this would be a great image for a travel agency or the beach owner or shops as framed artwork or something, because it captures a lot of story. It's a realistic photo because people are at the beach in the middle of the day. They're
I want to go
typically,
to the beach.
yeah, right.
It makes me want to go to the beach.
Um, so I actually like the time of day and the lighting of it. I want to point out that I love that this is shot in portrait and not landscape, which this looks like a landscape, but it's shot vertically, and I love it because of the colors, the triadic color scheme. You have the natural blues, greens, and reds, oranges, desaturated, with the sand being that light brown color. I love the color scheme. And even though it's in portrait, my eyes are locked into that strip of sand. Like, I feel like the green, especially from the top, where it's more, I don't know if you can see my mouse. Um, can you see my mouse?
I can't. I think you can only see mine because I'm shit.
Oh, that's okay. Well, I'm pointing to the top.
Come on over and
Yeah.
and just use my mouse.
I don't think that is proper social distancing, but
Probably not.
no. Well, I'm pointing to the very, very top where it's like patchy green and brown, and then you follow it down and it gets more green and more saturated and less brown. And then you get onto the lawn, and then boom, there's that sand. And then same with the blue. You have dark patches of blue with light patches of blue and cyan, and it like leads you up from both directions to that diagonal strip of sand. And it's very, very, very eye catching. And also the people too. Like, we can't see details on these people, but we know they're people. And subconsciously, this is a fun fact, subconsciously, if there is a figure in a frame that looks like a human with two arms, a head, and body, two legs, our eyes are going to magnetically like just go to that. So the fact that the color and the composition is pushing us to the beach, and then the line of people on the beach, like, I just really enjoy that.
Yeah, I very much agree. So yeah, good job to the maker. I actually had some notes in here, which you basically just covered. You're kind of talking about the gradation from the less saturated to the more saturated green, and the gradation of the blues. It does add some variation. Yeah, so nice job by the maker.
Yeah, right off the bat, I love the lighting and the composition, which just work very beautifully together with the curve, and in combination with the dress, the way this bride is looking, like, it just all feels like a very linear, just swooping from top left to lower right. And the lighting shows that, and the dress shows that. It almost feels like a wind tunnel, just like pushing everything in one direction. And it's not wind, but it's light and composition in this case. I do love a good black and white, but I genuinely do believe that if you can make a black and white look good, you can make color look good. Black and white's easier to look good because you don't have to worry about the balance of colors, but it looks like there's some Christmas wreath action going on the banister. So I'd imagine there's greens. I would imagine the walls would be like a brownish wood color, although I can't say for sure. But like, I think that would have been a nice color contrast between the green and the brown, because again, those are natural colors that are around the holidays, which I would assume this photo was taken around the holidays based on the decorations. Honestly, I don't have much to say about the bride because it just she just fits into this composition so well. Like I really don't have too much to say. Like, lighting's on point. Maybe have her chin up a little bit just so we can get a little more definition. If I had to really nitpick, I mean, this is real nitpicky. Like maybe clone out some of the wrinkles towards the train. Like, we're getting real specific here, but yeah, this is nicely done.
Yeah, this is a very striking image, and it really pops. So I commend the maker. I mean, the sense of light is just, bang, spot on. And a lot of these things, just like I was saying, at the beginning of this, there's a lot of subjectivity. I prefer more dimensional light usually, but not always. There are some photographers that enjoy flat, even light. So it's it's certainly stylistic. I really gravitate towards this because it is so directional, so dimensional. And there are pros and cons. What you're talking about with the dress, if it was flat light, you wouldn't see the wrinkles of the dress.
That's true.
However, if there weren't wrinkles there, with the dimensional light, you do get texture. So there's good texture, and then sometimes there's bad texture, and the same thing happens with complexion. Some people, like I have scars on my face and things like that. If a photographer wanted to even those out, a more even light, of course, would do that. If there's more directional light, you see scars more. You see, any kind of inconsistency with, skin tones. So you I think it's good to be comfortable with both approaches, and then you can make a conscious decision of, do I want to use something more directional, or do I want to use something flat and even here, or maybe something, in between where it's just a little directional, but not so much.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be honest, I didn't notice the wreaths. I saw that the lights were there, but I didn't notice the wreaths as much right away. But you make a valid point. If this is Christmassy, would it work better in color? Perhaps. I gravitate towards black and white a lot. Also something that's, pretty subjective, but there are circumstances where, maybe one works more than the other. An example could be, although in a weird way, I was going to say, if you're photographing florals, a bouquet, of course, there's a lot of time going into the colors. The couple, they choose their colors. The florist is arranging these beautiful colors.
Mm-hmm.
Black and white of florals is just kind of defeats the purpose of the palette. In a weird way, though, it's kind of like beautiful. I don't know. I guess maybe you just focus on the textures, but there are reasons to use color more than not, and sometimes black and whites. You made a good point about her face. I really like the light. I really like the composition. There's really not much I would change there. I would turn her head so that she's looking more towards that light. Because right now that the light is she's got split lighting on her face.
Yes.
Which usually split lighting is I don't know what the word is. It could look,
Jarring? Is it jarring?
it could be. I mean, sometimes it could be, I was going to say, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what word to use, but the split light could be kind of a little bit maybe of a darker mood, which could work with weddings. But I think with her head turns, with either Rembrandt lighting or her head turned more, where the front of plane of her face is lit, and you have that short lighting. I think that would work better. Um, she doesn't have a neck right now, so
Yeah. Yeah.
that's what's happening. You know, with she looks slightly more elegant than I do. But as I demonstrate, if the chin is too far down, you've eliminated the fact that there's, you know, that
A neck.
there's a neck there,
Sure.
and having those transitional elements in the body where you have the head to the neck to the shoulders are important to show off. So by turning her head and looking up too, because she's going up the steps, it seems to make more sense for her to be looking up the steps as she's going up and looking
Mhm.
towards that light. So I think that would tell the story a little better. It would show off her neck. I think the light would be a little more flattering on her face as compared to having, half of the face in shadow. And the other thing I'm noticing is the arm, the left side of her arm. Ooh, I see. I have a pointer.
Yes.
The left side of her arm is pretty much coinciding with her upper torso. It's also covering wherever her waist would be ending. So I can't actually see where her waist is ending. And what happens is it can create this optical illusion that her waist is actually ending out here. So it can actually make someone look heavier than they are. So
Oh,
by bringing the arm back, it's an optical illusion.
right, right.
If I'm like that versus that, you see that?
Your waist looks quote unquote bigger.
Right. And if I bring both arms up, well, it's pulling my shirt, but
Right,
it's an
right.
optical illusion. So if her arm is just back a little bit, where you don't have it coinciding with her torso, and you were able to show the edge of her waist, I think that would be a little more flattering. And I think that's pretty much all the notes I had, but really striking. She really pops. I think it was a smart point of view to show off the dress, of course, and
Mhm.
also show off that staircase. It's really tough to shoot up a staircase like that, because then you have extreme foreshortening, and you make everything farther away, their face look smaller, and everything lower on the body look much larger, which most people aren't crazy about having in a
Yeah.
picture.
Yeah. One more just quick note about the speed light or the light source that they used. I love the thin line that the railing is being hit by. Like the speed light's hitting the railing and creating that thin line of white, which guides us with the bride. Like it arcs with the, like, I love that, because if that speed light wasn't there, that railing wouldn't be rim lit and we wouldn't have that guide with us. So that's really, really nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice job by the maker. All right, so next one I'll start off with another black and white. I when I saw this image, like I just got such a sense of mood and romance in this, and I really really like that, and I really commend the maker on getting that mood. I can hear music playing. I could hear like classical music playing, and they're walking off together. It's just, I don't know. It's a great mood. It
Hmm.
tells a story. So many of these images and the makers are doing a really good job of telling a story. It's not it's if a couple is just standing there and they're static and they're not doing anything, it could sometimes bring up the question as to, well, why are they there, what are they doing?
Yes. Yes.
Another, and very much with video, you know video really encourages, and again, things I've learned from watching you, encouraging people to move, you know to do something, even if it's a 5 second activity,
Hmm.
just to have them do something. So, great job capturing this. I'll also say, obviously, this, I don't I don't think this is an issue where someone is off camera throwing up the veil to get this movement. Um,
Yeah.
she's stepping, he's stepping, um, and this random gust of wind came by and just blew the veil. So this, one note I made about this is the anticipatory skills that, we have to have with a photography. If you see a moment, it's already too late sometimes. So the maker of this, great job with anticipating what could have happened, and capturing it. Because again, if this gust of wind came by and the veil went up, and then all of a sudden you're going like that, it could already be too late. So really great job there. I love how, her left arm is doing something. It's holding the dress. Her right hand and his left hand, they're holding hands. He's holding the bouquet for her. It's like all the pieces are doing something. They're stepping. They're moving. It really tells a story. It's really animated. I'm curious if, a second or a half second later, their hands would have gone up a little bit higher, where you could have seen them holding hands a little bit better. Um, but I can still tell that they're holding hands, which is great. Let's see. In terms of the composition, and I think the lens choice, I think that the area on the left here, is, it's pretty highly contrasted. I mean, you got just about the lightest light and darkest dark you could have, and it does grab my attention away from them, although they're still very contrasted. I think if, and I know where this is. Well, it's pretty obvious. It says Hotel Bethlehem, so, I'm pretty good at picking up on subtleties. This I know where this is. There's like a crosswalk here. Um, I think if the maker was standing farther back and using a longer lens,
Yeah.
uh, and then just getting in on them, which would have eliminated, and they could have cropped out what was on the left. I think that could have made the composition stronger and still told the story, still had the same elements. Uh, Again, this is a crosswalk though. So if there was traffic coming by, it of course is hard to shoot across traffic. And you might have, a car blocking your shot. But depending on the traffic, if it could have been done, uh, most people by nature, they just stop driving their cars when there's someone in a white dress. So the maker might have had the ability to shoot long without traffic intruding. Um, but that's a perfect example of how context. I know the context of this situation because I've shot here, but if I never shot here and I just said, oh, well, stand back and shoot long, the maker might have been like, well, that's not necessarily possible. Um,
Right.
it could have been possible, though, I think, depending on traffic. And of course, you want to make sure that everyone's staying safe. Um, but that's, yeah, great job. There's also, it's subtle, but you can see the reflection of the couple, uh,
Hmm.
in the glass here, which is nice. It's something that you start noticing after you explore the image more. Great job by the maker of not getting themselves in the reflection,
Yes, I was going to say that.
because I am guilty. I have done that. And then you see me, and then, there's a very strong highlight right around here. And then that's all you see on the image, and there's just some bald guy in the reflection. So I've learned my lesson. So it seems like they placed themselves right here,
Hmm.
which if they're walking across with the couple and they placed themselves here and they didn't get themselves in the reflection, I mean, that's well done. Well done. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
pretty much what I have to say about this image.
I think you nailed a lot of practical shooting critiques, Bill, in terms of like, for next time, what would you do? And I definitely agree the left side is very distracting. It's not needed. It contributes no context. Um, for this image right now, just seeing the quality of the image, it has a soft texture. It has a motion blurred texture of the veil with the wind picking that up. And we don't know how strong that wind was, but it looks like the shutter speed wasn't razor sharp, which is perfectly fine because it aids to the overall feel of this. When I look at this, if I were to actually like put my hand up and kind of block the left part of the frame, the bright blown out section, this looks like an old, uh, you know, Kodak Tri-X 400 film type photo. And it has that very organic quality to it. And I really like that. Um, and this is stylistic, of course. But if the artist wanted to revamp this photo a little bit, I would say make it a 1x1 square crop. Take out that white, the left part of the frame, all that blown out white. And even I would say take it to the wall of the building, so we don't have to see the cigarette. I don't know what is that called? The cigarette bud.
It's well, I mean, it's a very substantial ashtray. Yeah, I don't know.
Ashtray. Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Take it, crop out the ashtray. Um, I mean, I think the trash can itself is fine. Maybe clone out that security camera left of the lamp right by the wall, and it's stylistic. But I think a square 1x1 crop of this solves a lot of the distracting issues while contributing to the old style film look, which I think this photo has. I think it was shot on digital based on the highlights and the roll off, but I can't be sure about that. But the subject, the bride and groom, the blur, the motion, the live action aspect of this, I think it could easily look like, grandma taking a disposable camera and just going click, and like it's such a cool expressive moment. So that would be my thoughts on that. I think to kind of just polish up this photo and embrace the qualities that it has.
yeah, absolutely. Good job by the maker, and we shall move on to this. And I believe you're starting on this one.
Yes, I will start. I am a big fan of long exposures. Cityscapes are very cool and can be shot in infinite amount of ways because there are so many different buildings, there are so many different angles you can take this from. So this is very cool. I love how the focal point is the center building, the tallest building with a point that automatically, like, my eye goes to there. I love the long exposures. I love the light streaks of the traffic. I wish my pointer worked for the recording.
Here, I'll point for you.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I love the light streaks. And even if you go up more, follow the trail. Right. There you go. Yeah, that light streak, like I love that. And since this is a long exposure, I know that a lot of light is gathered, and it can seem areas that already have a lot of light will get even brighter to the point where it seems a little unnatural. And that's where I see the building on the right and the trees on the left of the frame. They seem too bright. It looks like sunlight's hitting them, but that's clearly not the case because it's nighttime. So I would say there are two ways of doing this to kind of solve this problem. Is one, in the moment, take a shot from a lower exposure, like with a faster shutter, so that you get a darker building and a darker tree, and then you can kind of just mask it on, composite it on, so that you get the light streaks, but then you get darker buildings and trees. Or if you don't have that, then you could easily do a maybe not a circular vignette, but maybe like a gradient mask, so
Yep.
that it looks a little more natural and blends from each side. But something to bring down the brightness of the building and the trees, because my eye wants to go to that building, the center building, the tallest building. My eye wants to go there, but the corners of my eyes are like, what are this brown building, these brown trees, like what, and I'm getting a little distracted. But in terms of composition, like, spot on. Like we have elements to balance the frame that guide us towards that center building. It just comes down to exposure to keep us honed in.
Yeah. Yeah. Good comments. I agree. And let's see, what notes did I have about this? Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. And, images like this, there's so many, obviously, light sources, and it gets very difficult to juggle all of the different amounts of light that are happening throughout the image. And, you know, impossible to do with just one exposure. So I obviously the maker was using a tripod, to get these long exposures and those clean streaks of the car. Since you're using a tripod, I would certainly take many, many different kinds of exposures for many, many different parts of the image. That kind of editing can be time consuming and tricky if you haven't done it. I highly recommend a guy named Mike Kelly. Mike Kelly is an architectural photographer. He also does cityscapes and real estate. He has really great videos and content for shooting this way and editing and layer masks and all that, so that you could really refine how you have your light painted in, painted out in Photoshop throughout the entire image. So to the maker of this, you might be attracted to Mike Kelly. I think his last name is spelled Kelley, not Kellly, but check him out. And yeah, I agree with you. And especially, when you have a light source coming towards you, it's not obvious, it's not moving perpendicular to the way you're shooting. So your exposure for a light source that's going like that, is going to be very different than something that essentially is staying exposed for a long time. And that's what's happening with the cars coming up the hill. And I would have liked to seen the exposure on them down a little bit more, just to get a little bit more definition, like you have, here you have some more definition. Here it starts to break together. Shots like this, again, I don't know if the person lives here or if they were on vacation or what the context was, but when you're doing slow shutters with traffic, analyzing traffic patterns has a lot to do with the outcome of the image. So figuring out, it's just, there's always weird things that you don't think about with taking pictures that you only realize after you've done it. And
Oh yeah.
if you know when there are certain traffic patterns that are heavier or lighter, that could affect how much you can control these streaks, because obviously you can't just decide, okay, let's stop traffic and only let a certain number of cars come through here. So if the person lives here, they could scout it out a bit, spend some time and see when the ideal time would be for, these streaks. And I would have liked to see more streaks coming across, down here, in addition to kind of what's coming up.
Oh yeah.
But I really like the composition. I really like how there's this juxtaposition between the super clean, pristine skyline, and then you have these organic elements, and it's obviously not summer or spring. It looks like it's winter or the end of fall. There's, 5 leaves that are just barely hanging on. So you have this contrast of something that's kind of withering away and dying, and then the kind of texture and grittiness on the side of the building over here in the fire escape, contrasting the super polished skyline. So I think that was the conscious decision. I like, the juxtaposition of that, and I think it tells a story too. Which, back to story,
Mhm.
you can tell a story without people in it. Even though there are cars with people in them, you don't definitively have people in this, but there's still a story to be told. So good job by the maker there. Side note, you were talking about these sides being kind of bright and distracting. I
Mhm.
agree. Um, Bringing them down is good. And one thing that it's interesting, one thing in photography I've always heard photographers say, and I've read it in books and I've seen it in tutorials and heard it in workshops, they will often say your eye goes to the brightest part of the image. And what's interesting is, in drawing and painting, I was always taught your eye goes to the highest area of contrast. And so I think it's important to kind of understand that. And I'll give an example. If you're looking at like a snowy landscape, and so much of it is white, and then there's this grouping of dark pine trees up on the hillside, I
Mhm.
guarantee your image, your eyes are going to go to the darkest part of that image. So it's not so much that the trees in that particular landscape image are the darkest part, and it's not so much that maybe in another picture something is the lightest part, but it's what the highest area of contrast is. So I would encourage people to not just think about what's the brightest part of the image, but think about what's the most contrasted, because contrast will capture your eye more. If something is just light and there's nothing dark next to it, then it's like in a snowy landscape, it's not going to distract you. And again, in that image, your eye kind of goes to the darkest part. Another example with like weddings is, I've seen detail shots with like, and I've done it with like, you have the white dress behind like a dark pair of blue stilettos. So in that circumstance, your eye's going right to the darkest part of the image, not the lightest part. But it's that dark against light, high area of contrast, where your eye goes. So you do have light here, but you also have this really strong dark here, and that
Mhm.
especially adds to the contrast. This is light, but there's not immediately next to something so dark as this. So it is that this is light, but it's more so that this is so contrasted that really grabs your attention. So just a random side note that I always thought was interesting with what I learned in drawing and painting, what I've learned in photography is of course think about something that's very bright, but also think about the context it's in, and the contrast and how it could be next to something dark, like this. Super, super distracting, super contrasted.
Mhm.
All right. So great image, really nice job by the maker, and we'll move on to the next. And I believe this is mine to start with.
Speaking of brightest point in contrast.
Yes, exactly. So obviously there is some very bright spots on here. There's also black and white, with the suits. Very, very much, popping and capturing your attention there. Um, this is a beautiful moment, between, mom and son. It's one of those images that on a wedding day, you have to capture this image. This is the kind of image that hangs, on the mantle, above the mantle. It's a beautiful moment, and it's definitely something that you have to capture. Um, I think when I don't know the context of this situation, so I am curious. If I was talking to the maker, I would ask them, what was the environment like that you were shooting in? Was there a particular reason you wanted to completely eliminate the background? And maybe there was. I've certainly been in a situation, a prep situation where, maybe the location is not the best location in the world. Uh, there could be a lot of distracting elements during prep. Uh, People everywhere, stuff everywhere. I don't know the exact context, but maybe the maker was like, you know what, I need to get rid of the background completely and just focus on this. So if that was the case, good job eliminating what could have been distracting. But I don't know if that was the actual situation, and maybe there could have been some kind of environment, some kind of context that could have added to this story. So if there was nowhere else to shoot, I get it. Just get rid of the background, obliterate it. Uh, However, if there would have been a spot that could have offered some context, some location, I think that could have improved the image. Uh, if you are going to be, backlighting like this, be careful that the exposure and the light isn't so strong where it starts to wrap around, people's faces. When it's
Takes away
wrapping
detail. Yeah.
exactly, it could, it's not bad, but I think it could be brought back a little bit with the exposure, with the highlights being brought down. Um, because it can literally start just cutting off part of the body, and just completely eliminating. So if you're in a situation where you had to blow out the background, just be careful of the light starting to wrap around. Um, he's obviously, in terms of composition, I always think of the weight, the positive and negative kind of uh, shapes of what's going on. He obviously has more presence to him. He has more positive shape because he's taller, he's bigger. So I think the maker did a good job of purposely having more negative space on the right on her than what's over here.
That's a good
This is
point.
this is a very symmetrical image, but it's not completely symmetrical in that you don't have the same negative space on both sides. And if this was cropped here, where you had even negative space on both sides, it would not have been balanced because he is bigger, more positive space, positive shape. So think about that when you're composing. If you have like a lot of positive space on one side of your composition, you can be using negative space on the other side to balance it out. And you can, in the first image that we looked at, that with the skyline, positive space on the bottom left, and then positive space on the bottom right, and then the negative spaces were inverted, so it was an asymmetric image but still balanced.
Hmm.
This is actually, it looks like a symmetrical image, although again the negative spaces are a little bit different, so it's not exactly symmetrical, but it's balanced. So good job, being aware of having some more negative space on the right. And I think it's good that the groom has his hand up. That's subtle. But if his hand was just gone, if you cover up his hand, it's it doesn't tell as much of a story. It's like his hand is there. He's making sure the suit's together. He's making sure the jacket is buttoned. I think we've talked about hands a lot in this critique, and I think it was a good job by the maker to have that hand up. There's this tiny little nub down here, which I think could just be cloned out or show more of the entire hand, one or the other. But again, a nice image. This is an image you have to take. Mom's going to be very happy, and maybe just a couple things to refine.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of taking this image right here, right now, spot on with everything you said, Bill. I mean, if this scenario allows it, another trick that you can do while shooting is flip them so that you're right by the photographer is right by the window, and then they are still close to the window but further back, and you're shooting away from the window, and that way you instead of getting the blown out white, you would essentially get a completely faded dark, because I mean, this window looks particularly bright. So it's going to cast a lot of light on them. So if you can expose that light on them, the background should essentially fall to darkness. Obviously, I don't know anything about the scenario of this shoot or the lighting or the room or anything. But in theory, that could work. Because, and this is personal taste, the white background, quote unquote, the Apple look, like the old Apple commercials where it's a solid white background. It is white, but it's just barely overexposed white, so that, again, you don't lose that detail, like you said, Bill. It feels clean, but not like it's going to start destroying details. But, and again, with contrast, I personally, since there's so much white, I go to the contrast, which is clearly the suit jacket, and I'm looking at the suit jacket instead of their faces. So that's my just opinion. The way my eyes work is like, sometimes there's too much white. But again, in the scenario, if the photographer literally couldn't move anywhere, and this is, it's 2 minutes away from the ceremony, and he's just like, go, 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 then this is a great image.
Right.
So that hands down it. And the expression by far is spot on. Like, there's no debate about that.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm not sure where the maker made this. It just dawned upon me. I mean, this could be in the foyer, the vestibule of the church.
Sure, absolutely.
And behind them is a parking lot. So who knows? And if they literally only had 30 seconds to do this, smart decision, just obliterate the parking lot.
Yeah.
Shooting the other way, like you said, could also work too, depending on the context. But you bring up a really good point in that sometimes photographers might think that what's in the background is going to be seen when it won't. So you're talking about how quickly the light could fall off into shadow.
Absolutely.
And that's something that you want to familiarize yourself with if you haven't, as a photographer, as a videographer, because I have shot where the background is a fire escape door with a fire escape plan in the hotel, and I was photographing the bride, and someone said to me, there's a fire escape behind, there's all this, and I wasn't going to explain the inverse square law to them, or how,
Right.
cameras see exposures differently than us. And I just simply said, you're absolutely right. Fortunately, it does fall into shadow. And I showed them the image, and they're like, oh, okay, that's great. So you can have a bad background, uh, but if you familiarize yourself with the inverse square law and how the camera sees light differently than our eyes. Our eyes can see so much better into shadow and light than any camera can. So take that to your advantage. Sometimes you can have a bad background, but it might completely be eliminated into shadow.
Hmm.
All right. And yes, very, very great expression. Like sometimes sometimes it's like, okay, put the boutonniere on, we're smiling at each other and it looks set
Posed.
up.
Yeah.
Now, obviously there's direction given here. The photographer then just happened to, be there. But interacting with, this is another kind of side note before I move on. Interacting with the people that you're photographing or doing video with is tremendously important, as you know. I This very much could have been a situation where they looked at each other and it was, the awkward kind of fake looking smile. That's not the case here, and I think the maker did a good job of interacting with them, giving them direction, creating an environment, even if it was 10 seconds, where they felt like they can be genuine with their expressions. So yeah, I agree. Those are real. All right. I think this is you start off, good sir.
All right, good sir. Um, Immediately, leading lines are amazing. Leading lines from the two buildings in the background going diagonal, leading our eye towards the center of the frame. I love it. It's crisp. I love the blue tones in it too. Kind of, we're. It looks like we're either starting the day or ending the day with the sun low, and you have a lot of those blue tones in the sky. They are very represented in the buildings, and it just feels very. It almost looks like a painting. Like if you actually took out the cars, this would look like a painting. Uh, it just has a very nice quality to it that I like.
It is very painterly.
Yeah, and obviously, I'm a big fan of long exposures. This certainly was a long exposure, as you can see the streaks. Um, which this is actually a great example of what you were talking about, Bill, with the direction of the lights, where instead of the lights coming at us, they're going strictly horizontal, left to right or right to left. And we see those perfectly parallel streaks by the crosswalk. And I do enjoy the faint boot that we see uh, by the red streak on the crosswalk, like someone's walking past and their boot made it into the exposure. I thought that was
Flash
pretty
Gordon
cool.
made it into the picture.
What's that?
I said Flash Gordon's boot made it.
Yes, yes.
That's actually what's happening here.
um, I do get a little distracted by what's going on with the car situation with the truck, the van on the left side of the frame, and then that yellow bus on the right. Um, and this is one of those things where like the photographer cannot control where these vehicles are. Like I 100%. Um, but it is a little just off-putting, and I don't know how I feel about it because I have such a strong guide towards the building, but then the cars are just, it kind of makes my eyes go a little all over. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think back to the painting back to this looking like a painting. I love that quality, and the cars take me out of it. Like I feel like this is a painting from, I mean, the 1800s almost, with the buildings and the architecture, but obviously the cars take you out of that. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I'm torn a little bit. It's just like
Yeah,
a mix.
I think the same kind of thing was going on in my mind, and I'm very much on the fence about this because I could go either way. Like, uh, is this more about the architecture or the traffic, or is it about both of them together?
Yeah.
And I didn't get the same feeling with the other cityscape. I felt like the traffic was within the cityscape, and the traffic didn't seem distracting. And in here, and if you're looking at positive, negative shapes, like in the other image, you know, you didn't really recognize cars that much. Um, some, but they were much smaller in the composition, and so it felt like they were just within the cityscape. They were part of the city, and the cars have more presence here
Hmm.
within the city. They're simply just larger. They're more noticeable, and so um, now it's like, are the cars intruding on the great architecture and environment? Um, and I feel like you're right. I think they are intruding a little bit. Um, I think having cars within the environment certainly works, but I think maybe there's just too many cars going on here.
Yeah.
Um, and again, I don't know if the maker lives here. I don't know if they're on vacation. I don't know how much time they had. But an image like this, so much of it you don't have any control over, like you're saying. If you're working with a human, you can ask them to move here and stand here and do this and do that, and let's go to this location. You can't do that here. You really just have to wait.
Yeah.
All you can do is, all right, when is another time I can come back here, if you can even come back. Again, I don't know if they're on vacation. I don't know if they have access to this location, but I feel like it would be a little stronger if the car factor, we'll call it, was diminished a bit, so that it didn't distract, infringe on the environment so much.
Hmm.
Um, but I think there should be cars because it's, of course, part of the city. But I feel like the car factor might be a little too much. Maybe the maker could have waited for some of the cars to go by. I think the streaks work. I think the cars parked works. I don't know about the bus, like you were saying, but
Hmm.
maybe some streaks and cars parked, and maybe just one other car. Then there wouldn't be the pickup truck, the van, and the bus, and the streaks and the parked cars. So
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe just bring down the car factor a bit. Everything you're saying about it being painterly, I agree with. This light is like butter, just
It is like butter.
real, just soft, very early, very late in the day. Um, I like the balance between the cool and the warm tones. I feel like the saturation of the cool tones is stronger than the saturation of the warm, and I feel like just the warms. If you're in Lightroom and you just go to the HSL, the hue, saturation, luminosity, I think if the yellows and the oranges were made just a little more saturated, it could balance out with how saturated the blues are, or inversely, bring down the saturation of the blues a little bit so they're not pushing so much as compared to the saturation levels of the warm tones.
Yeah, I would side with the latter of taking the blues down just a touch,
Yeah.
but I do like that the blues are the dominant color versus the yellows and oranges.
Yeah, and this is just the sky, because so much of the environment, the buildings are very blue.
Yeah.
So just thinking about the sky, forget the rest, just the color balance of the sky. The blues are pushing a little harder than than the warm. So whatever you choose to even them out one way or the other, I think that would work better.
Yeah.
And yeah, nice image. I'm glad Flash Gordon made an appearance.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I told everyone there would be a special guest.
Yeah.
It was Flash Gordon.
It was not me.
Yeah. So if anyone is even watching this far in, there you go. You're welcome. Flash Gordon is here. All right. Moving on to the final image.
The final image.
I feel like there should be like sound effects and songs now for like the final countdown.
Do-do-do-do.
There you go. But our budget's very low, so we can just sing them. Yeah. Then no one will watch.
I think more people would watch if we added in sound effects. Get your guitar, Bill.
That's true. It's
Get
right
your
over
guitar.
there. Yeah.
I'll get the drum set. We'll make a custom soundtrack for this.
Yeah.
Oh! Photo critiques with Bill and Christian.
We need a jingle. All right.
That's it.
Yeah. Okay. Final image. This is another really striking image, and with the high area of contrast. I'm really attracted to black and whites, so they always just grab my attention. I think this seems to be like the first look or maybe first touch, during a wedding where they're not actually going to see each other, but they are close to each other. He's holding what I would assume to be vows, some kind of letter. Maybe there's a gift exchange. So there's definitely a story to be told here, which is great. I think all of the images today, I mean, really doing a good job of telling a story, which whether it's a cityscape or a wedding, whether it's an animate or inanimate object, really think about what story can be made. What's the narrative? And I think, a really great job across the board of there being a story told. I like the framing element around her, just this little cutaway in the barn. I think that's really nice. And I think his I would like to see more light on his face. Now, obviously he's inside, there's not as much light on him. If he was a little bit closer to the light source, to the opening in this is a barn. I think it's a barn.
It looks like a barn.
I'm pretty sure I know what venue this is. If he was a little bit closer to the light source, without her seeing him, there would be a little bit more light on him. So that's something that could be done, in the moment, Joe, Tom, whatever his name, can just a couple, I like to say moonwalk. Can you just moonwalk it back a little bit, a couple steps backwards without turning around, just to get a little bit more light on him? Because if you do look at his face, there's this kind of, there's a really great expression there, and it's all with the mouth. He's kind of like clenching on his lips, and it really says a lot. So there's a lot to be told in that. Sometimes it's not just the face that has the emotion. It could just be the mouth. It could just be, of course we all dream of that tear coming down that we can capture, but I see so much expression in his mouth. You could see it in the dimple on his cheek. I would just like to see it a little bit more. It's not something I saw as quickly as I would have liked to. So a little bit more. Now you can brush up the face a bit, to have a little bit more exposure. And let's see. Those are kind of the notes I had here. But I really like the expression on her face too. I don't feel like she's just looking at the ground. I feel like she is in thought. So a good job by the maker by capturing both of their emotions. And I think this is about, back to anticipation, especially with photojournalism, or a photojournalistic moment within a moment like this. Obviously they didn't just both happen to be here. This was set up, but there can be these 1 second, a fraction of a second, real photojournalistic moments, these expressions. And so I have to commend the maker on capturing that, especially with him. I feel
Mhm.
like she could have been holding that expression for a longer period of time. And in general, um, women tend to emote more and for a longer period of time than guys do. And especially the expression he's making, that's not something, when you kind of, clench your mouth like that, that's not something you hold for a long time. I mean, that's like and that's it, you
Mhm.
know. So I think they did a good job of capturing that. Uh, in terms of composition, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier about balance of one thing or the other. There's a very high area of contrast on the left side of this image, and there's a very low contrast on the right side of this image. And I think if some of the top and some of the left was cropped out, so your cropping is kind of ending here,
Mhm.
it's going to take away this whole giant area of contrast, which is dominating what's happening over here.
Yeah.
So you can have balance and actually have more of an asymmetric feel. It's interesting how um, you can have balance without having a balanced placement of everything. You can have balance with in the high areas of contrast. So in this case, you would have a high area of contrast on the one side, balanced by low area of contrast on the other, but the low area of contrast is much bigger. If
Mhm.
if that makes sense, if I'm explaining myself well. Um, Basically, I'm just saying crop a little bit off the top, a little bit off the left to the maker. I would encourage you to try that, with this image and see if that makes it feel a little bit more balanced, without, cropping out anything important, because you have room on the left and the top to crop out. But great emotion, great, the decisive moment, um, you know, being prepared and capturing that. Great job.
Oh yeah. I would say I do actually like the black and white of this. I don't know if I would like this in color because of his expression. He has this like gearing up moment, and it's like this photo is about him. Yes, it has both, but I really think that this photo gravitates towards him, with his expression. Whatever that piece of paper is that he's holding creates a little mystery of the story. What is that piece of paper? Is it a receipt for the bar, or is it a love note?
Right.
Like, we don't know. I'm sure we could guess, but between those two, but so I do really love the contrast and the moodiness of this. I think to help balance out this image, and again, this is an asymmetric way of balance. It's just the weight of the image in where your eye goes, and having different areas of contrast to balance out, which we've said the word balance and contrast a lot in this critique. Um, but what I would do is have a speed light or something to rim light him. So, like, have it on his far left where he's standing. So it just highlights like his nose, his hair, his boutonniere, because with that, then it defines him more. It gives him a little shimmer. I do like the fact that his face is a little shadowy. It's not as bright as her skin. His skin is, definitely doesn't have as much light on it. And I kind of like that if there was that sharp rim light. to really define him, because I think that lighting perfectly matches his expression. So yeah, I would say the rim light would be the biggest thing. I definitely agree with the cropping on the left. It's it doesn't really serve a purpose. And I'm taking a guess that this photo was not cropped at all, just by the aspect ratio. I don't know how I feel about the mason jars. I don't know how I feel about those. Yeah, it's interesting because this is so contrasted that anything other than them, I just see as like a distraction, because it's a very sharp change from light to dark. So I think any details like the mason jars, the little flags, the triangle flags above the mason jars, it's a little distracting. So I mean, now whether that's framing them out, or cropping them out, or cloning them out, I don't know what the right answer would be, but yeah, I think this is so strong on them that, like, let them do the storytelling as opposed to the details in the back.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm waiting for him to like read whatever he has, you know?
I love the expression on his
Yeah.
face. Yeah, and the more I look at his body language, like he's so like locked and kind of tight, and stiff in a good way.
Yeah. Yeah.
You wouldn't be just kind of hanging out in a moment like this. This is a big moment. He's tense.
Hmm.
Uh, again, in a good way. And yeah, for all the guys watching, give us photographers and videographers an easier time and just emote for us.
Yes.
just help a brother out. So I want to shake this guy's hand for emoting. There's a lot. He's emoting more than she is, and it's not something you see as much. And it doesn't mean that the guys aren't emotional. It's just whether it's coming to the surface. They can still be feeling, of course, but we're visual. We need it on the surface a little bit more to be able to capture it. So that's just kind of the nature of how guys can be, and the emotion can still be there, but when it comes out on the surface more, then we have something to capture. And again, I don't think he was like that for very long. So again, I commend the photographer for capturing that, which could have been gone before it.
Spot on. Yeah.
All right. So if I stop sharing the screen, you'll still see both of us, right?
Correct.
All right. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen, and now we're seeing each other, and we're still recording.
I see you. We are still recording.
All right. The fancy red dot is indicating that we're recording. Wonderful. Yes.
Yeah.
So nice. All right. So I just want to thank you for joining me, for taking out the time to do this critique.
Yeah.
I think for the first time through, I think it was great. The images were really solid, and I hope that people learn something. I always try to just hear things from another person's perspective. Again, whether it's right or wrong, it's not so much about that, because it's just something. It's another perspective, something to think about. So I hope at least people got something out of it, and I would like to continue doing this, and have some more photographers submit their images, And wherever this is posted, whether it's on YouTube or Facebook, comment below. Let us know what you thought. And, for anyone that submitted, feel free to reach out to me on Facebook, on social media. And I would love to hear, your honest thoughts about, how the critique went for you. And I hope everyone is staying healthy and safe during this time. And Christian, any closing remarks?
Honestly, I think every single image that I saw today had some really notable qualities that like really stuck out. And also, my opinion and your opinion, Bill, don't actually mean anything in the grand scheme of things. We have a select amount of experience. We have our perspectives. So that's helpful in some ways, but in other ways, it could be not helpful at all. So for all of the artists who, I will say, bravely submit it, because it is very nerve-wracking to submit something to other people to have them tear it apart. For all the brave people who submit it, I appreciate you and appreciate just you giving me the opportunity and Bill the opportunity to look at work and just see a new perspective on things. Both like we see a new perspective, and hopefully, you, the artist, see a new perspective. So that's what I really like about critiques. So thank you.
Yeah.
And I want to say, Bill, where can we find you? Where can people reach out to you, depending on where they see this? If they want to go to Facebook, to Instagram, to YouTube, where do they see Bill Stank Photosynthesis?
Well, you can find Bill Stank on Facebook by typing Bill Stank. There aren't any other Bill Stanks out there.
Really?
My dad is Bill Stank, but he's not on Facebook. So I don't know if there's any other Bill Stanks on Facebook. But I would like to meet another Bill Stank. www.photosynthphoto.com is my website. Instagram is photo_synth_photo. And reach out, say hi.
Absolutely. And likewise,
where can we find Christian?
Where can we find Christian? We can find Christian on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn. I'm a big LinkedIn fan.
Ooh, I need to get on my LinkedIn game.
LinkedIn is fun. I enjoy it.
Not on at all.
Not for everybody. Obviously, it's not a popular social network, but I'm a big fan. But you can find me on Instagram at Christian Golic Films, and it's Christian with a K, Kristian, Golic, Golick Films. So at Christian Golic Films for Instagram. I believe if you just type in Christian Golic Films on Facebook, you'll find the page. And then my name is, shocker, Christian Golic. And then my website is christiangolicfilms.com.
Well done.
A lot of consistency there, luckily.
Yeah, I just completely went the route of not having my name and having an unnecessary amount of syllables in the name of
But photosynthesis is clever.
The
growing.
Yeah. So I think that's probably the best note to end it on. Lots of syllables.
We'll have another critique soon. Hopefully in the next week, we'll be able to hop on another Zoom call and do one. And we have 3 more to go as of right now with submitted images, and potentially more if other photographers want to hop on board.
Yes, we will continue to have these critiques, have these episodes, and again, thank you for submitting. And it does depend on people submitting with how many of these critiques, of course, that we could have. But thanks for joining me, Christian.
Absolutely.
And
thank you for having me.
Thank you for watching, everyone. And until next time.